Welcome to Support Life, a program focusing on current social issues from a life-affirming perspective. I'm Gavin Baulch, and my guest is Eugene Wong, Executive Director of Candlelight Productions. Eugene, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Lots of things happen with Candlelight Productions.
Yeah, it's a busy time.
Yeah,
it's a busy time.
It is. So for all of those just waking up and doing some channel surfing, and there's a bit of a creativity in them, they'd better watch the show through to see if it's not going to touch them.
I think there's very often just something that applies to all people. It's just the nature of what we do.
Mm-hmm. And in a light-hearted way, you'd see yourself, first of all, as the rollout mascot for Candlelight Productions, is that right?
Yeah, we joke about every time an interview needs to be given, people just inflate my ego and roll me out.
Right.
It's great. So here I am.
Right, okay. Well, this is the show that's going to pin-prick the ego. Okay,
Great.
Good. We'll bring you back to earth. So, brought up in Melbourne?
Yep.
Okay.
Born and bred. Very proud.
Brunged up here. But parents come from Malaysia? That's your background, Chinese Malaysian?
Yep.
Okay. And sometimes you call yourself the banana. What's that?
Oh, it's a reference to being white on the inside, yellow on the outside and white on the inside.
Uh-huh.
Being born here, I think like an Aussie, I guess. And, growing up, I never ever kind of remembered that I was Asian until I was reminded of it. So.
Okay, but you did have some bullying at school.
Oh yeah, there's a bit of that. To these days, you still get a bit of bullying, I guess, from different levels, and that's life.
Okay, so did that temper you for things later in life?
I guess it toughens you up a bit. Helps you to figure out some priorities, and yeah, I found it gave me a really strong sense of justice as well.
Okay, justice. Unpackage that word for me.
Ooh, How long do you have? Justice for me is making sure that people are treated fairly, no matter who they are, no matter where they've come from, and that can be in unexpected ways sometimes, I guess. Mm-hmm. Sometimes what looks like justice on the surface isn't actually justice in the big picture of things.
Yes.
So,
all right. The creative world for you, how broad a spectrum is that?
Oh, it's huge. So I run an arts production company, a non-profit arts company, and we're known as a theatre company, but we've done a whole range of things. So theatre, dance, circus arts, stand-up comedy. We help to run festivals and things like that as well. But we also like to include some things from just out of left field every now and again. So the culinary arts, we will very often weave in food as part of it. Any form of creativity, we use that to build a tighter sense of community and trying to make an impact long-term over culture.
Okay, so let's say I got involved in some way. Could I expect a good feast at the end of the day's work?
It largely starts at the start of the day's work, actually. Most of our meetings, if not all, revolve around food, because for us, that's where community really begins. And people let down their defences and they're a lot more real with each other. And there's more of a sense of camaraderie. And I am constantly hungry, so.
Okay, all right, so at this point, the hunger doesn't show in your physique.
I have an incredible metabolism. I have been blessed.
Okay, it's known to fail when you get to 63 and 4 months.
Yeah, I'm in denial at the moment.
All right. Do you have a home base, like a theatre base house?
We have an office that's based in Hawthorn, but the theatres that we use and the venues that we use vary depending on the shows. So when we do something at the Comedy Festival, we choose to be in the heart of the comedy district because we want to go where the people are. We recently did a dance production and chose to do it just off Chapel Street in Paran at a well-known dance venue because that's where we know people will feel comfortable going. And to meet them where they're at allows us to then open up issues or open up topics that might feel a little less comfortable because they already feel comfortable in that place.
Have you ever been short of a venue to take the crowd?
Just going into the comedy festival registration process, we lost our venue a week before the registrations opened. So sometimes you do have these quirky things that happen, and somehow new venues always come up. But I've always got a list of venues that I would love to perform in or love to take shows to. So it's never long before we find something to replace it. Yeah.
All right, well, let's touch on Melbourne's Comedy Festival, which is a pretty big event. It's rated what in the world?
The third largest comedy festival in the world.
Yes. Yep. Wow, okay. And you started off with a show there, how many years ago?
2008 was the first year. The first year that we actually did it as part of the festival was 2011.
Mm-hmm.
That's 5 years ago.
Oh, okay. And what are the crowds like now? How many came initially, and where is it now?
So we chose when we started that we were going to do a clean comedy show. It was actually in response to a bet.
How clean?
Very clean, very clean.
Is there a term that would define that?
There is an artist integrity clause in contracts that's 2/3 of a page long by itself. So it stipulates things like, obviously, we ask that artists don't swear, but also that there's no sexism, racism, homophobia, or religious vilification, and generally no gratuitous references to violence and sex and drugs.
Okay, so no one's going to show up, right, to something like that?
The first year we sold out and turned people away at the doors in one of the largest venues of the festival. So that's, yeah. We're a bit surprised, actually, at the response that we've had.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you set a record on ticket sales too, is that right?
Not really following it, I guess. So we've found now that we've had the opportunity to not only run our major show, which is one of the largest shows at the festival. It's a big gala event, 2.5-hour event. But we've also had the opportunity to open up a whole venue of clean comedy. So that meant that now roughly about 3% of the whole festival has gone overtly clean. And so we're demonstrating that there is actually a market for clean comedy, and definitely an audience for it. We're really surprised to get 6,500 people come through the doors each year. Yeah.
All right, Eugene, I'm going to take a break and clean myself up. You're watching Support Life, and we'll be back after the break. Welcome back to Support Life. I'm Gavin Baulch, and my guest is Eugene Wong. He's Executive Director of Candlelight Productions. Eugene, we got into some interesting things like not just clean comedy, but squeaky clean comedy. But I'm afraid we have to go to the world of darkness here. The Dark Lord's reign, and you have an addiction.
I have many addictions.
All right, so let's be frank and honest with the folks here. West Wing?
Love it. I've been known to just watch one episode starting at 11 o'clock at night and end up going to bed at 3 or 4 in the morning after just one more episode, yeah. Okay,
so there has to be a purpose. What's behind it? What's driving you?
Aaron Sorkin, who's the writer of it, is a really good storyteller. And I think he's managed to distill down the human condition in many respects. So his characters feel real to me. And I'm just in love with all the characters in the show. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I'd love to be able to tell stories the way that he does.
All right, so the human condition is an important focus for you?
Yeah, a big one.
Okay, you even wrote a play called Human, is it something? What happened there?
We produced a play called Human. Mm-hmm. It was another very talented author, Fraser Tuschin. But yeah, that was really delving into what it means to be truly human.
All right, and that's what we're touching on here today, is what is it to be truly human? What about when someone's exposed to an unexpected set of circumstances? Let's say there are some folks watching and there's an unexpected pregnancy. it's just been announced, and they're caught out by the circumstances and issues. What story might you tell to help them?
Stuff happens, I guess. I guess I've seen good stories and bad stories in my time, and I've got friends who have really struggled through rough times. One friend in particular who had an unexpected pregnancy and some complications as well, and they knew that this child was going to have issues, but she kept the child, and it's been a really hard journey, but I've seen her make some of the wisest and most strong and bold decisions since she got pregnant. And I've actually seen the hardship draw out character in her like I'd never seen before. And so it's really made me think very hard about the role of hardship in bringing out unexpected beauty in life. Yeah.
That's not going to sell.
Yeah, unfortunately. Well, actually, we've been thinking about writing a show where one of the characters is a mother who's been trying to figure out whether to keep a baby or not. It's something that we've been kind of plodding away with for the last 5 years or so, and just wanting to tell stories without making judgment one way or another, but just recognising that it's not an easy situation for anyone.
So I guess if there's someone watching who has a story in this realm, to contact Candlelight Productions and just share some of the emotive components.
Yeah, I would always welcome that. But you know, for us, I love hearing stories anyway. I think it is at the heart of who we are as humans, to want to be known, to want to be understood, and to not have to feel ashamed all the time. And so this is what we do. We collect stories and we tell stories that help people to understand that they do fit into the bigger picture.
But I don't have time to listen. Isn't that the cry today?
Yeah, we've busied ourselves up a lot, and quality time is not really a priority for a lot of people. I think it's an art that has been lost, and we're suffering for it. And so I really miss the days of, you know, having nothing to do on Sunday because all the shops were closed, and so you had to sit around over an extended lunch and have lunch and tell stories together. Bring back those days, I say.
Okay, but then you could say, if you contextualise it, you have helped bring back those days. In other words, let's go to the theatre, let's go to the comedy festival. Isn't this that lunchtime break where something's shut down?
Yeah, I guess the work that we do, we're trying to find a wavelength that resonates really well with the people who come to see it, so they don't feel quite as alone in the world, so they know that someone else understands them, sometimes better than they understand themselves. And in the context of the shows that we put on, we try to create community, even between audience members or between the artists. So,
okay, can you tell us a story from a production that you've done where this has occurred?
Oh, put me on the spot.
That's what it's about.
We did a production of The Importance of Being Earnest many years ago now. It's probably 5 years ago, and as part of that, we chose to buy an individual present for each person who had been involved in the show. So there were 48 people in the cast and crew, and it was my job as the producer to know them well enough to be able to buy them a personal present. And it took roughly 2.5 months during the rehearsal process to keep an eye out for these things and buy them. But come the after party, after the show finished, they were all given these gifts, and there was one person who was given a picture book. It was a kid's picture book, but it had a very well-chosen message to it. And she disappeared behind the couch during the after party and just wept her way through this book. And it was her way of understanding that we knew her as a person and that we saw her. That was really significant. And we've got many stories like that.
All right, so the person, the individual, and the human condition are high priorities for understanding in your life.
I think every person's important. Very often in society, we look at the masses and we're looking at numbers, but individuals are a really valuable thing. And yeah, I'd really love to see us reclaim that more.
There's a challenging point to end for this break. You're watching Support Life, and we will be back after the break. Welcome back to Support Life. I'm Gavin Baulch, and my guest is Eugene Wong, Executive Director of Candlelight Productions. Eugene, we've covered a few things. We did touch on someone in a crisis pregnancy. How does creativity and imagination work to help work through the circumstances that have changed dramatically?
Wow. I actually think that it helps us to dream, and hearing other people's stories helps us to learn from the wisdom that has been garnered through someone else's mistakes, I guess. So it creates new doors, new opportunities. I'm all for hearing other people's opinions and the wisdom of many, I guess. And so the work that we do is all about sharing different stories so that other people can garner more.
Okay, and what are the homes where these stories are told? I mean, do we do open air stuff? How does it all work?
We'll perform anywhere, really, where there are people. But most of our work happens in theatre spaces or dance spaces. Sometimes we'll be called in to help to run a festival or a major event. And it's through the community development that we build that tells a story. So without us even saying anything, it's telling people. We recently had someone who came to Squeaky Clean Comedy, actually, and she spoke to us afterwards and said, "Why is it that from the moment that I walked in, I knew what the ethos of the company was without having read anything?" And it's just that story, the way in which she gets treated and the dignity and the generosity that she receives tells her something about what we believe and about who we are.
So are these ethoses tied in with some virtuous foundations? What would you say?
I guess at the heart of it, it's just recognizing that we believe that we're all made by God, and so each one is precious. And so if people are coming to see our show or coming to our event, they're our guest, and why wouldn't we want to treat them with the same love and respect and dignity that God has for them? And so we don't Bible bash people with stuff, but that is the heart that it flows from, even if they never know that it's been inspired by our faith.
So you don't do a great deal of advertising. What's the main draw card?
We get a lot of word of mouth. I think 87% of our tickets have traditionally been sold through word of mouth. And so it's people who come to see a show and they're really moved by it and they say, "I want to come back, but I'm going to bring my friends with them." Or they'll see a show and they'll say, "What's the next show? Because I'm definitely coming back for it." And so that's great. And then, some of the advertising that we do is more, it's almost to make it look more official, I guess, and to just raise awareness from people who wouldn't otherwise have heard.
Okay. Now, I touched on before that Candlelight Productions have broken a record here or two about attendance. What does that look like?
Oh, when we did The Importance of Being Earnest, we actually broke the ticketing system at the venue that it was at, because so many people tried to book on the one day. It was something that we're still quite proud of. Things like having squeaky clean comedy in a 700-seat venue and having to turn people away at the door simply because so many people came. It is something that obviously you never want to turn people away at the door, but it is kind of nice to be able to say, well, we told you to book early.
Yes.
And a few years ago, we had our first scalper trying to get rid of tickets, so to a full house, and so that's when we felt we'd really made it.
Okay, so how did you show grace to the scalper?
Oh, we just let them. I think it helps to raise our prestige. I'm fine with it. Good on him.
Good. Now you, when we first started, wanted to refer to the urn here behind us. So is that anything to do with the being earnest?
Oh no, that's dreadful.
Can I come to the comedy festival in the squeaky clean category now?
Yes, just not in our show.
Oh, okay. All right. Where do you want to take your audience?
I guess what we'd like to see is people who see our shows moved and inspired by what they see, or challenged or convicted in a way that gets them to, or inspires them to change the way that they live their life, and ultimately to bring a deeper level of freedom to their own life, but also to other people's lives. We like seeing people's lives changed just by coming and seeing a comedy review or a dance production or something like that.
Okay, so sometimes you'll do multidiscipline productions?
Yeah, this coming year we've actually got one production which is an orchestral production merged with a light show, multimedia and dance, and we're really excited about that one.
Okay, and that's in Melbourne?
That will be in Melbourne.
Will it tour?
Probably not. Touring is very expensive, and our heart has been very much for Melbourne, but just bit by bit we're finding people inviting us to tour to different places.
Okay. What's some of your experiences with touring? I mean, you'd start off wanting to do a few shows, and then what happened?
The first production that we ever did, we intended to do 2 or 3 performances in a local community hall, and word of mouth spread, and next thing you know, it's a month-long tour in a different venue for every single performance. That happens. Again, it's the word of mouth thing.
Yes. Well, having concluded with the word of mouth being important, you have been watching Support Life, and that's all for our program today. Join us again next week. Goodbye.